Hi, it's Doug and Beans from Hammersmith Equestrian Center here on East Ennis, Massachusetts. I'm Doug Wrench, I'm the head trainer.
I'm Amanda McAfee, I'm the assistant head trainer.
So Beans, today what we're going to talk about is you get a lot of scenarios with horse training and riders. A lot of times you get riders that send a horse to a trainer.
Yep.
They paid a lot of money for the horse, and the horse goes fine after the trainer works with it. Sends a horse back home, and now we have a horse that's way too advanced for the rider,
Yep.
or the rider doesn't know how to ride it like the trainer did.
Exactly.
So that's really amounts to a bad plan.
Yes.
Okay, so if you
And a
just
waste of money.
yeah, so if you're going to spend a lot of money getting your horse trained, you got to go spend time with a trainer and make sure you can make the horse go
Yeah.
like they can. You know, that's a really important thing. Now there's other issues too with training horses. The one becomes people with not a lot of money see a beautiful thoroughbred off-track horse and they buy it because it's cheap, it's beautiful, and guess what? They're going to train it, right? You know, I mean, I'm going to deputize you, instant horse trainer, okay? Unless you have experience as a horse trainer, that's going to be very difficult.
Yes.
And most people also have a problem with time.
Yes.
You've got to work with the horse
You
a
have to
lot.
have no time constraint when you're training a horse. If you have only 20 minutes, then you should probably work with grooming your horse and building your bond with it. If you don't, because you can have a plan written down on what you want to do, but it doesn't always go as planned. And sometimes, even when I'm training my horse Jagger, sometimes I'm like, all right, I have a 25-minute ride, I'm going to do this and that, and then 10 minutes into it, I'm like, well, now I have this problem that I'd like to work through, but I don't have the time to work through it. And then it kind of sets me up for failure, not failure, but regression for my next ride, because then I take 3 steps back. So time is definitely important.
And we kind of have an advantage here at the farm because every horse that's being trained here is here on training board.
Yes.
So the horse is being boarded, we train them, and then once we're done or we're transitioning, because you're never really done.
No.
When you're transitioning to the owner or whoever's going to ride the horse, it goes from, you know, to less training, more working with the rider on the horse.
Yes.
And make sure they can ride him the way the horse was trained to be ridden.
Yeah.
And that's such a huge, huge thing.
Well, even that's like, again, with Jagger, you trained him before I started riding him. So there have been times, especially when I first started riding Jagger, that I get frustrated with something, and Doug would come along and say, oh, well, this is how I ask him to do it. And I would do it that way, and it would be fine. So that's why, if you send your horse off to training, you need to make sure that you know what the trainer is doing and how the trainer was giving input, because if you're not doing it the same way, you're not going to get the same result.
Right. It's like rodeo, our Mustang, okay? I pretty much let Amanda, train him exclusively, and then me, the hotshot trainer, jumps on him. And what do? I just, okay, he's all warmed up. I'm going to drag a little spur on the back of him because he's a little lazy.
Yeah.
Get him up to a canter. Well, I got him up to a canter all right for about 4 or 5 laps in the ring where he didn't want to stop.
Yes.
And so that was, hey, I'm an experienced trainer, but I don't know what Amanda's been doing with the horse. I didn't take the time to ask.
Yep.
I just arrogantly got on the horse. Okay, let's like a cowboy.
Yeah.
And got it. That doesn't work that well all the time.
No.
It's like if you're looking for a horse for sale, and you're looking to buy a horse. I never find it helpful to get on the horse I'm going to buy. You know, I mean, most of the time we do it, don't we?
Yeah.
But I don't find that information too helpful. I'd rather see the owner or the trainer, whoever's responsible for the horse, get on, make the horse do what it's supposed to do, and then I know that when we get the horse back to the farm, we'll be able to get to that point with the horse. But it's not instantaneous.
Because sometimes there's retraining involved too. If you buy a horse and you see the owner ride it and the horse is going perfectly, well, maybe the horse's owner is asking and giving aids that you would never use on a horse. So maybe you get back to the barn, you buy the horse, you start riding it, and you come along with all of these issues. Well, it's not necessarily the horse's fault. The other rider was probably using completely different aids than you were, and now the horse is confused.
Yeah, and it's the old scenario like, well, I want to move up in competition or whatever I'm doing, so I'm going to buy a really expensive, awesome horse. And chances are, if you don't do it properly and take the steps we just talked about, you'll probably be worse.
Yeah, well,
or
because
hurt,
horses, if you're riding a horse that is a little bit more experienced than you are as a rider, you know, you can learn a lot from a horse like that, but you also kind of need to have another set of eyes there to help you out so you can actually learn from it and not, you know, pick up bad habits or run into frustration. You know, you kind of have to have a plan with everything you're doing with horses. Even before you buy it, have a plan.
And one of the biggest pitfalls you run into with training horses is information from the previous person that rode them or trained them. Because, you know, we got 3 horses here right now that people have told us things about the horse, and
Yeah.
none of that's really true.
Yeah.
So we set up our training program based on what they told us, and it took us a long time to figure, like, wait a minute, none of this is true. We got to go in a completely different direction.
You know, are looking at a horse that a few different people have had, and they kind of don't really give you a lot of input on what they did or what they could do or couldn't do or what was positive or negative. And so, you know, a lot of the time you don't get anything completely honest, or even if they think they're being honest, sometimes what they're seeing isn't completely accurate.
Well, face it, if you're selling a horse, you're not going to tell people negative things about it. You know, I had one person I bought a horse from, and it was after I'd owned him for a couple of months. And I had another trainer get on him, and the trainer gets off and the previous owner asks, well, what do you think? And he said, well, the horse is half broke. And she's there like, well, what do you mean he's half broke? And she jumps on it and starts riding him and tearing around, looking like an idiot, frankly. You know, the horse not in a good position at all. And, you know, it's, people sometimes have a higher expectation or a higher opinion of their horse than is really valid, you know? So it's a fact-finding thing. You know, the best thing you can do, and we talked about this before, is kind of, you know, get on the horse and don't have any preconceived notions of what the ride's going to be like the first time. You know, and again, to reiterate it, if you're going to work with a trainer, boy, you better have your riding on that horse completely in coordination with what that trainer has done, or you're going to get nowhere. You know, how many times you hadn't heard the story? And it happened with Jagger. Jagger was someplace being trained, and I spoke to the trainer. This is before we owned him. And they said, like, yeah, I trained the horse. The horse was going really well. I gave it back to the owner, and they complained about the same things. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what went wrong. Okay, it wasn't the horse. The horse was doing fine with the trainer. The rider wasn't